Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the Texas Motor Speedway for LSRTV's continuing coverage of the 2016-2017 United Sim Racing BNC Lawn and Landscaping Truck Series on iRacing Live. We're happy to be with you tonight from the Great American Speedway as we welcome you into LSRTV booth. Myself, Evan Pasoko, alongside with Gabe Wood, topside with you, and our producer Cisco Scarluzzi downstairs pushing the buttons and bringing us to you here tonight for round number 6 on this campaign, and what's also going to be the final race on this side of the season as we will pick things back up on the 2017 side of the calendar for tonight's Chris Kyle 250. The field is doubled up. You'll take a look at your LSRTV starting grid, go across the top of your screen as we get set for 167 laps of action tonight in Fort Worth, Texas. Pole position tonight belongs to Aaron Bennett, a 29.307. Was good enough to put him on the pole. He'll be joined by Tim Matthews as they come side by side at a quarter number 4 and get this race underway. As always, we're so happy to have you with us on LSRTV and iRacing Live, the iRacing.com official pace car. Going to make the sharp left-hand turn out and away, and we are underway. American Ethanol, green flag flies and racing from Texas to turn number 1, and a good jump for your pole sitter Aaron Bennett for the first time, side by side for second on back.
Side by side for second and for fourth at the 22 of Seth Fowdy. He's going to look to capitalize on that outside starting position. He's going to move to the inside, trying to go for fifth as they go into turn number 1, top 3, single out. They're coming to the line here for the first time on lap number 1. They can complete one lap here. Aaron Bennett still in the lead, had a little connection trouble there off the start, but he's going to come to the line and lead lap number 1. And number 87, Justin Michael, he's going to duck down to the bottom side of the 88 of Michael Atkins Jr. as they go into turn number 1. Going to be a good race. He's going to get a 2 for 1 as they go into turn number 1.
Continuing on the charge, meanwhile, the 22 is the guy who's going the wrong direction. Atkins picks up a position as it is Fowdy going the wrong way. He's able to get himself back down to the bottom. Looks like you don't want to be stuck on the outside too early on in this one. A little bit further back, here comes the number 1 machine. Jason Jacoby started in 16th position. Just 2 laps later, he's up to P10 and looking for more. He takes a peek to the inside of Dwayne Dunn. After being able to take another spot away from Bobby Terrell, he's already up to 9th. Good move so far for the Domino's Toyota.
Back up front, top 3. You can throw him under a blanket here on lap number 3. That's 17 of Jamie Walker. He's to the back bumper of the 3 of Aaron Bennett. They're going to have a good race here in just a couple laps if that 17 can find a hold through. And if he does, that's going to put that 54 Tim Matthews into the mix as well. All 3 of these drivers want a good win. Aaron Bennett was robbed of a win there a couple weeks ago at Phoenix after losing by a bumper, so he wants to get to victory lane here in this season.
And the top 3 are pulling away from everybody else as they stay tight on each other. About a second until you fall back to P4, which is where you'll find Michael Waters and company. He's got Justin Michael all over him, and that's where the battling continues on from there on. But the top 3 single file at the line exactly as they have been since lap number 2. The only change was on that opening lap where Jamie Walker, who started 3rd, was able to use the inside of row number 2 to move up from 3rd to 2nd. It kicked Tim Matthews back from 2nd to 3rd. And then after that, they got single file. They've been riding as you see them for the time being. Doesn't really look like the 17 wanting to play with the 3 at the moment. Tim Matthews getting a little bit more extravagant from behind in 3rd. He looked high the last time, took a peek low that time. Still nothing to come from that. We've got a long road to haul here tonight for the Texas Motor Speedway. 167 laps, as I noted. It'll be 250 miles until the checkered flag flies tonight. So there really is no reason for these guys inside of the top 3 game, especially because, well, they're picking up about 1 to 2 tenths per lap on 4th on back to force the issue with each other. This is a race that, because it is such a long one, there is going to be a point in this race where you go through, I think, at least 8, if not multiple cycles of green flag pit stops just based on the distance. There's no reason to get yourself in trouble in the opening bit.
And another thing to look out for, they're already starting to do it there as they went into turn number 1. You're going to see that bottom lane start to rubber up as these 30-plus trucks run that bottom side of the racetrack. You're going to see these tires wear out, and as that bottom side rubbers up, you're going to see them move to the top side of the racetrack maybe. Around lap 30 or 40 here in this run. You're going to have to wait and see what happens. A little update, Jason Jacoby in that 1 machine. His march toward the front continues. As you said, started 16th. He is now up to 7th. and working on trying to get inside that top 5. He's closing in on the drivers in front of him, the 88 of Michael Atkins Jr. He's to the back bumper of the Phoenix winner, that 87 of Justin Michael.
We always know that qualifying is going to lead to an opening, or interesting opening couple of laps, because you'll have some guys that don't necessarily qualify to the ability of their truck under race conditions and vice versa. You might have somebody who puts down a little bit of a better time, but in all honesty, that one machine of Jason Jacoby hasn't really shown us up until now that that car has a whole lot of speed. 21st in practice, 16th in qualifying. He's already made, as you noted, halfway up to the front of the field, now in 7th position. So whatever the one machine has figured out in race conditions is working out for him. And if you can get halfway to the front in the opening 9 laps, he gives himself about 158 more laps to go in this race to be able to get the final 7 positions. Meanwhile, in that number 1 spot, Aaron Bennett just now starting to pull a little bit of distance on Jamie Walker and Tim Matthews. I think a battle for P2, maybe not all that far in front of us.
Evan, I want to talk about something real quick. You talk about the 1 working his way up to the front. The 20 of Scott Howell, he started 11th. And I was just looking through to see all the drivers that won and passed. He started 11th. He is now down to 23rd, last lap, and 24th. But now he's got it around that 30 of Louis Robinette. So you talk about the 22 going the wrong direction. That 20 of Scott Howell, he's got a long road ahead of him here tonight.
The driver who runs in front of him right now in 22nd position is Michael Warren, who started in 30th. Scott Howell started this race 19 spots in front of him. He was just able to get the spot back this time, but that really tells you how rough things have been early on in this one for that 20. A couple of drivers don't make it to the racetrack. Michael Priester, Dave Killens don't take the green flag, so it is a 30-truck grid. Old trucks on track were able to take the green flag and still run on the lead lap at lap number 11. Meanwhile, Jason Jacoby continues his march towards the front with a move by Michael Atkins Jr. to P6, but not giving up as the Nationwide Chevrolet side by side once again for position.
Battle of the makers, really. The bow tie on the bottom side of the racetrack, the Toyota Tundra on the outside. He's going to chop block him as they go into turn number 3, break that momentum. He's going to be securely in that 6th position. That Michael Atkins Jr. machine, he tried to make him fight for it, but looks like he just does not have that early speed that one Domino's machine does. And now he's going to go after that 5th place machine. It was Justin Michael, but now that 87 machine has gotten in front of the 55 of Michael Waters. So Michael Waters back from 4th now to the 5th spot, and Jason Jacoby going to put him in his sights. Meanwhile, that battle up front, it's kind of equalized, a little bit of equal distance between the top 3 drivers, 2/10 between the 3 and the 17, and another 2/10 between the 17 and 54. So Evan, this might be our running order here for the time being.
We'll see if the 88 can get that spot back for the 1. They'll go side by side again. Jacoby has looked really good, and they're going to make contact off into turn number 1. A big slide on the outside for Jason Jacoby. He brings it back under control, and it not only cost him P6, but maybe another one. Here comes the 22. Seth Foudy up the inside. Give him that number 7 spot, and just like that, Jason Jacoby P6 to P8, and he continues to slide. And now Bobby Terrell going to go up to the bottom of the racetrack. The 1 machine may have some damage from that incident.
He's going to slide back into the 9th position as Bobby Terrell and that 24 muscle machine goes to the inside. And hopefully he does not fall all the way back to Dwayne Dunn in that 10th position. That would be a heartbreaker with the amount of time that number 1 machine has made up here in the last couple of laps. I think it just kind of broke his momentum there, Evan, just getting doored. He's lucky it was a square hit from that 88 machine. They just kind of made contact. He wasn't expecting that dive down to the bottom of turn number 1 and just made some contact.
The tough break, we knew that they were going to pinch each other off into the corner, because obviously I was about to say before the contact that the 1 has looked pretty good tonight on the outside, but you obviously don't want to give him too much space. Meanwhile, a battle going to take place for the number 2 position, and I kind of predicted when those guys started to pull away a little bit up front that I think it is going to be a battle for P2 before we see a battle for the race lead, and that's exactly what happened and well executed. Tim Matthews going to move up back to where he started this race. And now the drivers who sit 1, 2, 3 are back in the order in which they started, as Matthews is able to make up that spot he lost on the green flag and kicks Jamie Walker back into 3rd.
Now we get to see what that number 54 machine can do with Aaron Bennett in that 3 truck. See what's going to happen as I go into turn number 3. He's going to see. Let's check the gap here. It was 0.4 of a second between Matthews and Aaron Bennett last time by, but that was whenever they were racing side by side. Let's see where it's at this time. down to 3.5 tenths, so he's catching him bit by bit. We could have a battle for the lead.
Yeah, all it takes is to get around somebody, and even though I wouldn't necessarily say that the position Tim Matthews is in represents clean air by any means, but I think that being able to get around the 17, I think it was rather evident was holding him up just a little bit, is going to help out that 54 machine. And again, Tim Matthews, somebody who didn't really show a lot of speed in practice, 13th, but we know that a 54 shows up that he is here to play, and he's got the University of Kentucky on board, and maybe celebrating a win that Kentucky had over North Carolina today, and maybe hoping to do the same thing to Aaron Bennett and be able to make it 2 on the day for the Blues. So he's catching in. The gap right now is about 2.5 car lengths rather, up at the front of the field. And meanwhile, I think what we kind of expected to see, Gabe, is that now Jamie Walker falling back. Now, the 17, no threat from behind, because 4th place is now Justin Michael, but he's over 2.5 seconds back. So Jamie Walker has some time to kind of sit by his lonesome there in 3rd, which I don't necessarily think is all that bad early on in a race, but I do think that Tim Matthews is going to put up a fight here in a moment.
Got it down to about 1 car length between the 3 and the 54. Like you said, the 17 of Jamie Walker sliding back. He's just going to watch this battle happen. See, this is going to be the first, whoever is the first to flinch here is going to be the person who loses out this battle, because that 3 of Aaron Bennett, he pushes up the racetrack just like the 17 did a few laps ago. That 54 is going to drive right on by. See what's going to happen. They're going to run the top side of the racetrack in turn 1, duck it down to the bottom in turn number 2. That gap is going to remain about the same, so equalizing the times just a little bit, but just one mistake and that 3 truck is going to be in 2nd.
The 54 to the back bumper. The question is, does he try to force Aaron Bennett up the hill? I don't expect that we're going to see these guys get physical at this point, not only because we're only 20 laps in to a 167-lap contest, but I also think a little bit of contact at 180 some odd miles an hour, not necessarily the best of ideas. But the front stretch here at Texas is a quad oval as opposed to a tri-oval at a place like Las Vegas, where the front stretch is that broad and gradual left-hand turn. Here, there's 2 very distinct kinks, and what that does is you can quote-unquote apex each of those dog legs on the front straightaway, Gabe, but after you hit the start-finish on and you go off to turn 1, just because of the way that track snaps at an angle, the bottom does open up. So I think maybe Tim Matthews' best idea, if he doesn't feel comfortable going to the top of the racetrack and try to make a move up there, is get on the bumper coming out of turn 4 and then force your way to the inside. It's a little bit of an aggressive move, but it's something that I think is always on the plate at a track like Texas because of how that front stretch looks.
Well, another thing as I go through into turn number 4, I want you to look at something. Say the 54 is to the inside here coming out of turn number 4. He would have no room on the bottom to make that pass if Aaron Bennett kind of pitched him down. So he would have to be at the right angle to kind of make that apex, basically. So it's a very difficult pass there on the front straightaway. I myself have had to lift. Maybe I'm not that good of a driver, but I've had to lift to keep myself out of a situation like that, to keep from wrecking the person on the outside of me. So it's not a done and deal once you get to the inside of somebody. Plus, the outside lane is not that bad here at Texas if you have somebody on the inside.
Justin Michael, meanwhile, is the fastest driver on the racetrack. The last time by, he put down a 38.95. It was better than the 30.97 by both Aaron Bennett and Tim Matthews in the number 1 and 2 positions. So I said he really wasn't a factor, being 2.5 some odd seconds back. Here he comes, the driver who started in 9th position. He's only about 7/10 off of the bumper of Jamie Walker. It could be in part due to the fact that I think maybe conserving the tires a little bit better. Again, he dropped to, at that point, 2.5 seconds off at the time. Meanwhile, Jamie Walker, though, he'll pull the strategy card early on, and he's not going to wait for Justin Michael to catch up to him. The Mountain Dew Chevrolet pit road at lap 25.
As they already start hitting pit road here, I want to update you on something. This is what happens whenever you wear out your tires early. Jason Jacoby, he was running in 11th just a lap ago with Jamie Walker pitting. He's going to move back up in the top 10, but he was 6th momentarily just a few laps ago, so he has worn out his tires, and hopefully he learns that he does not need to race hard here in the first couple laps, because if not, it's going to bite him.
We'll see if this is going to bring everybody down pit road again. If 25 laps is a number that we're going to be seeing on fuel, it is going to be a long night of service, going 167 laps still to the end of this race, which will be extremely interesting when you talk about the strategy aspects of this one. But we'll see whatever the case may be as the night goes on. Obviously, coming down pit road going to cost Jamie Walker a lot of time. He was obviously in third position at the time that he dropped off to the pit lane, and we'll get a better look at where he runs right now. He is 1 lap down in 28th position. So he will eventually, if these guys up front, the 3 and the 54, continue to stay out, catch them, put them, obviously get himself rather back onto the lead lap, because being out there with fresh tires is that much better. Just to talk a little bit about the tire fall off in this one, Gabe. Aaron Bennett, your race leader. Fast lap of the race was obviously lap number 2 when he got that truck up to speed. It was a 29.5. The last time, a 31.2. So these guys approaching 2 seconds of fall off.
Yeah, at the time, Jamie Walker was about a second and a half back. So yeah, if he can make up that time consistently on those new tires, he should be well in the lead. But the problem is, once this run kind of runs its course, and these drivers on new tires, Aaron Bennett, Tim Matthews, Justin Michael, all of them come to get tires later in the run. If we don't see any more short pitting, that's going to put the 17 on the back leg.
Here comes a challenge for the race lead, though. Aaron Bennett lost a little bit of speed at a corner number 4, and here comes Tim Matthews, side by side for the race lead, and to the point for the first time tonight, Tim Matthews out for quarter number 2.
While that was happening, another lead lap driver, Justin Michael, comes to pit road, but that's going to put the 54 into the lead here momentarily. See if he can lead the lap coming around this time. Aaron Bennett led at that time. Should be that Kentucky Wildcats truck up front this time by that 54 crosses the start-finish line. These guys are taking a chance here staying out this long. It'll work out for them later on the run, but do you really want to risk losing the lead to these guys?
We'll see if pitting this early kind of signifies a major difference in strategy. If somebody goes 25 laps every single time and somebody else goes 35 to 40 laps every single time, then that's obviously going to add up to 2, 3 at least different stops on the night. Now again, that is a long race. Sometimes cutting a pit stop out of your run here or there and maybe trying to go a little bit shorter runs with the exception and kind of sacrificing having to come down pit road more, but you think the tires will be a benefit. Sometimes that works. I think normally, though, in shorter races, and again, we'll have to wait to see this strategy develop as the night goes on, but it sounds like it'll be about a 7 or 8 lap differential because Tim Matthews just took over the number 1 position, was running as low as 3rd tonight, came over the radio, and now dives down off of the corner at a turn number 4. He gives up the race lead to come down pit road at lap 32.
54 Tim Matthews on the pit road. That's going to give the lead back to Aaron Bennett and put Seth Foudy into that second spot. Seth Foudy, we saw him drop back earlier in this race. He's now up inside the top 5 in second momentarily, but as that 54 comes to pit road, see, he's going to stop in his box, hits it perfectly, so he's not going to have to back up and miss his pit stall. Yeah, while we were talking about the lead and everything, Justin Michael on pit road, see where he is in comparison. Jamie Walker, he is well out in front of that Justin Michael machine. He is now on the lead lap, Jamie Walker is. Justin Michael still off of the lead lap. I think Jamie Walker may have pulled a good move here pitting that early with the rest of the guys staying on the racetrack.
Well, again, the basic math we made, and again, it wasn't quite all the way there, but we said about 2 seconds of fall off. Rough number. So to make the math easy, you stay out 7 laps. That's about 14 seconds of track time. So you get these guys back out onto the racetrack. I don't think there's any surprise that the strategy call made earlier on in this race by Aaron Bennett in that 3, who was actually now back down pit road in that 3 Chevrolet. So we were just talking about how good the strategy was working out for him, Gabe, and I have to imagine part of the plan was not coming back down pit road at lap 35 because now that tire advantage that he had just worked on is gone. He'll have maybe a lap or 2 better tires when he gets back out there, but I don't think the strategy, realistically, would have said come back down pit road at lap 35. So curious what the call is there with the 3 team. They go with 4 tires. I'd keep an eye on him because I'm not sure about that one.
Gonna have to wait and see this time by. Let's see where everybody's going to cycle out. I don't believe anybody else is on the racetrack. Scott Formosa, Scott Simley, Robert Gillenwater, Greg Mall, all of them have come to pit road, so that should put Jamie Walker into the lead here on lap number 35 as he comes around turn number 4. Let's see where he's going to cycle out and how far ahead he will be in front of the competition across the line. Yep, he's going to move into the lead, and as timing and scoring comes around, 4 seconds in front of Justin Cleaver, who has yet to come to pit road as he comes to pit road now. It's a 6.5 second lead, Evan, for that number 17 truck.
Jamie Walker's enjoying it right now. He's well out in front of the field. Justin Kleber was in that number 2 spot, but he drops down to the pit lane to get service on his Speed Energy Chevrolet. So that's how we get that 6.5 second differential to Tim Matthews. And again, just that little bit of a difference as far as coming down to the pit lane is what makes a world of difference, really, in the end. But for Jamie Walker, again, you have to look at this in the sense that the 17 machine in a position where was up front, decided to come down pit road at lap number 26, and now has cycled his way through to the point in this race. He's now at the tire disadvantage, in theory. So we should start to see Tim Matthews make up time. The last time by it was about 2 to 3 tenths of a second better, so we'll keep an eye on those guys. Back to the story with Aaron Bennett again. Bennett did not come down pit road until after both Walker kind of short pitted these guys and Tim Matthews had come down to the pit lane, so it was much later of a stop once Bennett decided to come down to the pit lane, and the call by that 3 team puts them about 9.6 seconds back overall, or about 3 seconds back from Tim Matthews. So I think you can count on losing about 1.5 seconds per lap the longer you stay out compared to somebody else. The question now is, Gabe, if it was that simple, nobody would stay out longer than anybody else. But now, Aaron Bennett has better tires than Tim Matthews. Tim Matthews has better tires than Jamie Walker. We'll see now how that plays out over the course of this green flag run.
That gap up front already down 0.5 second as it's 5.8 seconds now. It was up about 6.3 whenever the Jamie Walker inherited the lead. So that 54 is coming just like we predicted. And that's going to move the also back in the pack. The 3 Aaron Bennett is now moved into that 4th position, going after the 88 of Michael X Jr., who was really the big winner. I believe he was running about 5th or 6th there before pit stop, so he's done very well to get on and off of pit road. He's going to move high side and let that old leader go through. So the 3 of Aaron Bennett now into the podium positions. Now he's going to track down that 54 of Tim Matthews. He's about 3.5 seconds behind him, and it's now down to 5.5 seconds up front.
The one benefit or the one gamble that you hope to take if you are Jamie Walker is that before those guys catch you, or sometimes the second you get past is when you hop down to the pit lane, but essentially you hope that, sure, you kind of accept the fact that he's got better tires, but if Jamie Walker wants to go the same distance, he's only about 9 laps away from coming back down to the pit lane. I'm not necessarily convinced that Tim Matthews is going to get there in that amount of time, only making up 3 or 4 tenths of a second per lap. So, again, not a huge deal at the moment. Then the interesting thing comes, though, around lap 100, when, the Jamie Walker machine pits 10 laps earlier than Matthews, but eventually that becomes 20 laps earlier on the second run, and then it becomes 30 laps after 3 cycles, and eventually we're going to reach a point, Gabe, where they'll both be on pit road around the same time as each other, but one person has pitted 1 time more and the other guy has pitted 1 time entirely less than the other person. That's the only opportunity that we're really going to get to see, okay, whose strategy is working out right now. Anything we say now, just kind of speculation, because again, sure, Tim Matthews has better tires, obviously Jamie Walker has the track position. Give it about 40-50 laps if we stay in the green flag conditions, and then we'll start to get an idea of who's making the right call here in this battle between P1 and 2. And again, don't forget about Aaron Bennett. He was just able to get around Michael Atkins Jr. They swapped out 3rd and 4th.
A little bit farther back in the pack, we were talking about Scott Howell a few laps ago. He dropped from the 11th starting position down outside the top 20. He's already worked his way up into the top 15 and 13th. He's now going to lose that position to the 87 of Justin Michael and also Jason Jacoby in that number 1 Domino's machine, working his way back up front. It's a side-by-side battle between 87 and the 1 as they go into turn number 3. Gets tight there in turn number 3, but they're going to sort it out coming off of 4.
Everybody else in the pack that kind of got lost in the discussion of all of this has been able to get through their pit stops. Looks like essentially everybody has been down pit road once at this point. There's a side-by-side fight for 14th spot, and it's Jason Jacoby and that 20, as we were talking about. Scott Howell got tight with him off of quarter number 2, and Jacoby going to be able to use the outside once again to hang on to his position, and then he looks to attack Justin Michael just in front of him.
He's going to try and get to the back bumper here on lap number 45 as they cross the line. Getting closer and closer to that halfway point, Evan. I know it's a little bit farther away, but you start counting down the laps. The intensity gets ratcheted up, especially at these 1.5 miles, because drivers are going so fast, and you're able to save your tires like the Aaron Bennett machine was trying to do earlier in the race. If you have the good tires, like we're going to see these pit stops kind of show, if you have the best tires, and you've got a fast car, you're not afraid to rough some fenders, trying to get your way up to the front, and we may see Jason Jacoby try and do that.
I think that battling with people also is kind of important because as you take a look, there's a side-by-side fight for 10th at the, well, actually it's going to be for 11th. Dwayne Dunnan at 39 and at 14 to Hurlo. They sort things out in a 1 and 2. In races like this, as I noted at the top, a race that can absolutely go green for a good portion, if not all of it. It's been some time since we've seen a race go green start to finish on Saturday nights, but we have seen it actually quite often. In prior seasons of this United Sim Racing BNC Lawn and Landscaping Truck Series, you kind of lose focus a little bit. Some drivers absolutely love these long runs out there by themselves, logging laps, lap after lap after lap. And if you're just a little bit more on the wheel and a little bit more attentive than some of these other guys, you know, a couple hundredths of a second here and there can really add up over the course of 250 miles. There's some other guys, though, Gabe, that kind of struggle with these races when you're out there by yourself and, you know, the first like at a green flag, pit stops, you're up on the wheel, absolutely, and once you get to, you know, 50 laps to go and 40 laps to go, you kind of wake yourself up and you're back in the action. But in the middle portion of the race, it's very easy to kind of lose yourself and kind of lose track of everything else that's going on around you. So I think that, well, the easy idea to say is, you know, don't battle everybody. You got plenty of time. Don't force the issue. I think that staying up on the wheel and always trying to move forward is the best idea for these guys to really just keep their head in the game.
Evan, a driver moving forward as the 54, Tim Matthews. Those new tires are starting to show, Evan. For the past 2 laps, he's chopped off half a second in the past few laps. So it was at 2.5. Now it's down to 1.888. It's getting close here, Evan, toward the front.
Yeah, and it's going to be, again, like I said, I think right on the money where Matthews is going to catch Jamie Walker right when that 17 wants to come down to the pit lane again. He pitted at about lap number 25 the last time. Well, we're in the works of lap number 50 at the moment. So if he wants to go the same distance, Jamie Walker should, in theory, be coming down to the pit lane this time, just as Tim Matthews threatens to make it less than a second of a differential between the drivers in P1 and P2. But Walker, he'll pull high coming up off the quarter number 4 and does not come down to pit road this time. Same can't be said for everybody else. A couple of drivers, radio chatter starting to pick up. Michael Warren is down pit road from 26th position. In fact, he had quite a little bit of a slide onto the pit lane, but expect that the green flag cycle to pit stops to kick off for a second time tonight. I think Jamie Walker may be one of the first drivers to come down pit road. As you see, the gap with Tim Matthews is now at 0.9 of a second. All eyes on those guys up front. Still the 17 refuses to bite. Here comes Matthews. He might get on this line.
I think that's 17 of Jamie Walker. He's going to try and hold him up as much as he can, take as much time off of that 54's lap time as possible, make him wear out his tires just a little bit, and then pit as soon as he gets past him. That gives him just a little bit of leeway time, you know, as soon as he gets past, and maybe wear out the 54's tires so he can make up that time back. So let's see what's going to happen. Is he going to try and make it hard on him here through turns 3 and 4? The 54 is going to duck to the outside. Looks like he's not going to get him by the time they get to the start-finish line here on lap number 53. 17 of Jamie Walker still in the lead. As I said, he's making it hard on him.
How about a side-by-side fight for the race lead at this 53 laps in point in the race of 17? He's going to be able to make it a good fight coming off at a quarter, but I just think no match realistically based on the tires these guys have on board. And no surprise that Tim Matthews going to put himself back to the point. I am surprised, though, with the strategy play, at least what we're seeing right now, but a Jamie Walker game, because, again, everybody else with about 30 to 35 laps into the run wasn't that surprising. He's going a little bit longer this run, not much longer, because Walker just over the radio this lap says he's going to be coming down to the pit lane, but I still am uncertain about that short pit strategy. Tires obviously are of importance, but I want to say this race might be a little bit too long to really come down pit road when you've got enough fuel in the tank to knock it a couple of more laps. But the Mountain Dew Chevrolet, nonetheless, to follow with the strategy that he kind of showed that he would do over the course of this race by pitting so early the first time, does come down to the pit lane for service. That will give up P2 to Aaron Bennett, who's closed it in to Tim Matthews. That's a 2.4 second gap.
Yeah, it's 2.7 last lap and 2.4 now. I mean, that was kind of due to the battle there, but still, he's closing in on those newer tires. So this is, we're going to yet again see Aaron Bennett, just like Tim Matthews did with the 17, the tires will start to wear out on the 54 a little bit faster. Aaron Bennett will make up the time, but I don't think he's got time to get up there just yet, Evan. I think we're going to have to go through pit stops before that we see that 3 up front.
Yeah, it's going to be, again, very similar to what we saw with Tim Matthews and Jamie Walker, and it's just kind of funny how that's the way it works out in these races. You can, pit 3 laps after the guy, you can pit 10 laps after the guy. Somehow, it always ends up where you're right on top of each other by the time somebody's headed down to the pit lane. So I'm surprised that Walker didn't react to Tim Matthews. A lot of the time, somebody will see that that person has caught up to them, and for example, when they were side by side at a turn 4 at lap 53, I was kind of surprised that we didn't see him come down to the pit lane at that moment. What would be bad for Jamie Walker and the risk that he kind of takes by playing this short pit strategy would be a caution, because pitting puts him 1 lap down. Now, when the guys up front pit, Matthews, Bennett, Foudy, Terrell, Atkins, the top 5 come down to the pit lane, he'll get back to the lead lap. It's not going to be an issue. He's got to hold his breath here for about 10 laps, hoping that the yellow doesn't come out and trap him a lap down, because he's the 4th driver 1 lap down right now, behind Scott Howell, Justin Cleaver, and Stephen Herring.
Yeah, but I think he might be safe if he stays out and the rest of the field pits. He'll be able to get the wave around the pace car, but still, he won't be able to come to pit road and get new tires, and he will not be on the same strategy as the rest of the field. So yeah, that will be a disadvantage. 2.2 seconds now, the gap between the 54 and the 3 up front. Seth Foudy now into 3rd behind. Bobby Terrell is now into that 4th position, and Michael Atkins Jr. in 5th. Let's see, where is 87 of Justin Michael? He's actually in 14th. I don't believe he pitted yet, or has he pitted, Evan? I'm not quite sure, but he slid down the field from being in the top 5 early.
Right now there's 20 drivers on the lead lap, but again, most people have not pitted for a second time. About a few here and there. Randy Tesser going to come over the radio just now, says that he'll be coming down to the pit lane. Michael Waters from inside of the top 10 running in 6th position. Says that he'll be pitting this time, but Matthews, Bennett, Foudy, Terrell, Michael Atkins Jr. at the top 5, still not wanting to come down to the pit lane. Again, they waited about 33, 35 laps, so you have to think, anywhere from 67 to 70 laps until they come down to the pit lane. And really, in reality, Gabe, it's only, 10 laps of a difference every single pit cycle, but as I said, that becomes a 20-lap difference on the 2nd cycle, and then a 30-lap difference on the 3rd cycle, and eventually these guys are going to end up completely apart from each other. Yeah, there'll be a part where we could have 50 laps to go in this race, and the guy who's eventually going to win going to be 30 seconds behind just because of how the strategy works out. So got to keep an eye on these numbers, see if these guys are constantly going the same distance, and still difficult now, about 6 laps away from 100 laps to go in tonight's Chris Kyle 250. But once we get to, 60, 50 laps to go, I think it'll become quite clear at that point who's sitting in the hot seat at that point.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying, there's about a 50-second difference between making 3 pit stops and 4 pit stops, with the tank of fuel and having to come down. So, but I think this is a good strategy for Tim Matthews, because I think Aaron Bennett's going to run out of time, or just going to have enough time to get to his back bumper before these guys come to pit road. And see Aaron Bennett coming over. I believe he's coming to pit road this time. I'm not sure. But Tim Matthews may be pulling off the winning strategy by being up front at the time of pit stops and being on the same strategy as Aaron Bennett.
Brian Harvey over the radio also discussing coming down to the pit lane, yet to come down. Stephen Herring chatting over the radio as well. So you also get to that point in the middle of the cycle of pit stops where, much like we were talking about Jamie Walker, we're getting a lot of guys laps down. And I think statistically speaking, it always seems like cautions are more likely at a cycle of pit stops, because when you got people going around each other, with the tire fall off 2 seconds faster, 2 seconds slower than each other, closing rate really becomes a concern. Texas isn't necessarily a terrible place for working around traffic. It is an intermediate racetrack, but I think it's a lot wider than most tracks. A Charlotte Motor Speedway, kind of a little bit smaller than this. A place like a Chicago or a Kansas or a Las Vegas, a lot tighter. But places like Texas, places like Atlanta, a little bit more space to navigate around, and I think that these guys appreciate that. The gap between 1 and 2 continues to trickle down. Aaron Bennett's small tire advantage, though, slowly beginning to dwindle away, but he is still faster than your race leader, and the gap is about 1.5 seconds.
He just goes around that number 18 truck to, I was going to say the 18 truck goes around him. So the 18 truck that is Ricky Howe Jr. has pitted. So he's trying to work his way back onto the lead lap, or gets one lap back. So let's see what that 54 does. It's getting down to crunch time to see when these guys are going to come to pit road. If anybody does, 1.33 seconds. 54 slowing down. No, he's not. It looked like he was slowing down just a little bit there on the entry to turn number 3, but that's not going to happen. It should be down to about 1 second flat here, Evan. It's a 1.1 second lead. So Aaron Bennett, he may have time. I may be wrong, but he may have enough time to catch that 54 Tim Matthews.
Bobby Terrell is somebody who is historically known for showing up late in these races, and he's kind of lurking in third, so I wouldn't forget about Bobby Terrell and the Muscle Milk Machine. But here comes Tim Matthews, lap 66, down pit road. Aaron Bennett, who obviously waited a little bit longer to pit the first time, not going to come down with him. Aaron Bennett going to go to the race lead at lap 67. Well, there may have been one or two trucks who, during the big rush of cars down to the pit lane, because Gabe, that first cycle we were obviously watching the guys inside the top 3. It seemed like once the guys from 1 and 2 came down pit road, excluding the fact that Jamie Walker pitted early, I mean everybody came down in like a 2 to 3 lap window. So outside of maybe 1 or 2 laps being handed to somebody else, this race has been led by Aaron Bennett, Tim Matthews, or Jamie Walker, waiting to see if somebody else can get themselves into the picture by a little bit of strategy of their own.
Evan, I'm not so sure about the 17 strategy. I think he's just digging himself a bigger hole by pitting earlier and earlier. And we brought it up. We keep bringing it up. He's going to end up being a full pit stop behind these guys unless he gets a caution whenever he gets back on the lead lap. I think that's the only way the strategy is going to work. He's going to have to hope for a caution once everybody gets through their pit cycle.
Bowdy going to come down to the pit lane, so is Bobby Terrell, so it looks like this may be the mad dash onto pit road. Bennett didn't pit. Dwayne Dunn is actually going to go up to P2. Scott Simley going to take over third, and just like that, there's only 9 trucks at a lead lap. Give it 2 laps, I think everybody will be down.
See if Aaron Bennett comes to pit road this time by. He's going to dive it into turn number 3. Looks like Scott Formosa coming to pit road this time by. Here he goes. That speed's dropping. And Aaron Bennett, your leader, is going to come to pit road. He's going to have to whoa it down. It's like he makes it to the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit on the entrance to pit road. And this is going to allow Seth Foudy, Bobby Terrell to make up maybe about a second on Aaron Bennett as he rode around the racetrack, because tires were getting pretty worn. But here comes Jamie Walker. He's going to get back onto the lead lap and see where he's going to cycle through. I'm not sure about this strategy, but then again, I've never been a crew chief, and Jamie Walker surprised us many times this season and last season. I'm not sure, but I think that 17 strategy may not work for him.
We take a look at a guy like a Michael Waters, who has been in and around the top 5, but again, hasn't been a part of those 3 names specifically that have been, 4 to 5 seconds ahead of everybody else. Waters has already pitted for a second time, Gabe, and he's in front of Jamie Walker right now in 7th and 8th, and he has fresher tires. So again, I think that doing the shorter runs to get the better tires can work in some instances, but I am skeptical about it working here. Now, like you said, I'm not going to discount the 17 because Jamie Walker absolutely knows what he's doing. If you took every second place finish that he had last season and included every race that he won last year, he'd be in double digits. So the 17 machine knows what they're doing, but he had struggled last year with a lot of second place finishes. And well, we're only 5 weeks into the year, and for anybody else, I wouldn't make a big deal about it. Jamie Walker is winless. There was a point a couple of months ago where he absolutely dominated every Saturday night. And I think that the 17 sometimes can absolutely just beat these guys straight on with speed. I think they're trying to find a sweet spot on strategy that puts them in a good position. But it looks like everything has cycled through. We're 72 laps complete here tonight for the Texas Motor Speedway. And Tim Matthews has gone to the point. He's followed by Aaron Bennett, Michael Waters, and then Jamie Walker inside of the top 4. Halfway in just a moment, we'll take an opportunity to step aside. When we come back, we'll take a look at our iRacing Midway race break. We'll begin to count you down towards the checkered flag in tonight's Chris Kyle 250. You're watching LSRTV's continuing coverage of the United Sim Racing BNC Lawn and Landscaping Truck Series on iRacing Live. Plenty more to come from the Great American Speedway on the other side.
So cool, yeah. Nate, what are you working on at the moment?
So I'm working on the animation for the game. We're working on getting pit crews fully developed, and that involves a lot of moving parts. So I'm going in and making sure that each moving part can dovetail smoothly into the next one, so that when you pull in for a pit stop, it looks like the real thing, as opposed to a bunch of jumbled pieces that suddenly stop and then go and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool, but why aren't you working on the time model? Nothing?
Welcome back live to the Texas Motor Speedway. Race leader Tim Matthews still in control now with 80 laps complete tonight in our Chris Kyle 250. It's the 6th round on the 2016-2017 United Sim Racing BNC Lawn and Landscaping Truck Series on LSRTV and iRacing Live. And as always, tonight's coverage brought to you by BNC Lawn and Landscaping. Based in Frankfort, Delaware, you can check out BNC for all your landscaping needs, including turf care, mulching, snow removal, and more. Professional, licensed, and insured. For more information, you can contact Aaron Bennett at bc_lawn_and_landscaping at yahoo.com for more information. So, Matthews, Bennett, Atkins, that's 1, 2, and 3 with a difference of 4 seconds and then 10 seconds between your race leader and the drivers behind him. Matthews looking pretty comfortable. We were chatting under the commercial break there, Gabe, about the strategy with Jamie Walker. Since we stepped aside, the 17 has gone back to 21st position and 1 lap down because he has come back to the pit lane. We had kind of alluded to reaching a point in this race where the strategy would begin to catch up to each other. I think we're almost there, and unlike after the first cycle where Jamie Walker got to the race lead before losing it, as we thought would happen on tires, this time he didn't get within 8 seconds of the race lead. So the 17 continues to stick with the strategy by coming down pit road once again, but I don't think that's going to be the job to do it. Again, I will say it again, Jamie Walker has showed us and proved us wrong in the past, but don't be surprised if the 17 team tries to do something to mix it up a bit.
Well, I think it really showed, at least maybe Jamie Walker saw this whenever he came off of pit road and he ran those laps. He should have been in the lead, or at least the strategy would hope you are in the lead by that point. He came out behind Aaron Bennett, and he came out behind Tim Matthews. So at that point, that's really, you have to abandon ship, but you really can't. You're stuck really with the strategy he's in, and maybe it'll cycle back around.
Lap 84 going to be complete this time by as we cross the halfway point in tonight's race. Let's take a look at our iRacing Midway race break brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and more. Drivers going to be pit side momentarily. We'll let you know where they sit as of now. Tim Matthews, Aaron Bennett, Michael Atkins Jr., Bobby Terrell, and Seth Foudy with the top 5. Shuffling up a little bit, Bobby Terrell up to 3rd, Foudy to 4th, and Atkins to P5. Just behind them, Justin Michael runs in 6th position. Michael Waters is in the number 7 spot. Brian Harvey up 6 to P8. Dwayne Dunn in 9th, rounding out your top 10 at the moment is Scott Simley.
Just outside the top 10 in 11th, Christopher Hurlow in the number 14. He started 20th, now running in 11th. Scott Formosa, we saw him up front there during that round of pit stops in that 80 truck. He's now down to 12th. 13th is Greg Ball, last week's winner at California. Jason Jacoby in 14th. Last car on the lead lap is 15th, Robert Gillenwater. James Benton in the 75, 1 lap down in 16th. 17th is Shane Hawther. Michael Waite in the 18th position. 19th, Louis Robinette. And Jamie Walker, just saw him come to pit road in 20th, trying to make that strategy work.
Continue with the list of guys laps down. 21st, Justin DeCleaver, Stephen Herring 22nd, George Hendricks 23rd, and Scott Howell 24th are also 1 lap to the negative. Ricky Howell Jr. is 2 laps down in 25th position. Michael Warren is 26th spot, 3 laps down, along with Ralph Vander Voorste, who's also 3 laps down in 27th position. To round out the field here tonight, Randy Tessar is behind the wall. His night is done in 28th. Keith Butt is also behind the wall in 29th, and Michael Fravert behind the wall in 30th. So 3 drivers have parked it so far tonight, but again, clean and green since the drop of the American Ethanol green flag now 88 laps ago. That's a look top to bottom at your iRacing Midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com and sign up today. You could also use the exclusive LSRTV promo code for the next couple of months as we close it on New Year's. If you enter PR-2016 LSRTV, when you register for a new iRacing membership, not only is iRacing going to hook you up with 13 cars and 14 tracks to get yourself started with absolutely free, we'll toss on another car and we'll give you the NASCAR late model as well, along with all the other base content absolutely free. Again, you can only get that when registering for a new iRacing membership, and you must use the LSRTV promo code PR-2016 LSRTV when you are going through checkout. So next thing you know, we're no longer counting up, we're counting down. We're going to be closing in on the end of this Chris Kyle 250 for the Texas Motor Speedway. And Gabe, like I had noted a little bit earlier on, we haven't seen a race like this go green all the way into quite some time on Saturday nights, but we've seen it happen plenty of time before in last season's USR Truck Series Championship, so we kind of knew that it was going to break out at some point. I think realistically these guys had to expect it as well. When you look at the race lengths that we see here on Saturday nights, 167 laps, 250 miles is half of what you would see, on a Sunday with the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. It's the same distance, that the NASCAR Peak Entry Series, the NASCAR iRacing Pro Series run at this track. So it's a 50% race. These trucks aren't as quick, though, as those Cup cars. So we're used to seeing these longer races, which in a way is kind of refreshing, because I think strategy is something that gets overlooked a lot. And I think tonight's winner is going to be based upon the strategy and how that plays out at the end of this one.
Tell you what, Evan, while we're waiting for the 3 of Aaron Bennett and the 54 Tim Matthews to kind of get that battle for the lead going, it's going down by 0.2 a lap. So before we have pit stops, we may have a battle for the lead. But the 14 of Christopher Hurlow, he is in the top 10, and he's trying to get after it. He's going to have that 67 of Brian Harvey to the outside of him, so he's going to move into 9th by the time they get this lap done. The 12 of Greg Mall, last week's winner at California, is going to move into the top 10 position, and behind them, the 80 of Scott Formosa. He's behind. Oh, a little bit of checkup. 80 has to get on the brakes. 12 has to get on the brakes as they all check up going into turn number 2.
Just because everybody's spread out doesn't mean you get a little bit of a 3 or 4 car battle and things can go haywire quickly. Good job by those guys off at 2 and down the back. Turn 2 is really a tight corner here at the Texas Motor Speedway. It's known to be Calamity Corner, and surprised that we haven't seen more issues off in there. We saw a couple of guys get into the fence off in turn 2 during qualifying earlier on in the night. Side-by-side battle going to continue. Off behind that 12 of Greg Mall, Scott Formosa, Brian Harvey. They battle for 10th spot, and it looks like up the inside, Scott Formosa going to be able to take that spot away. And now in front of them, Greg Mall to the inside on Hurlow in a battle for P8.
Side by side as drivers start coming to pit road, the battle for the lead, 1.5 seconds. We're going to stay with these guys. Brian Harvey is going to slide back outside the top 10. Scott Formosa into 10th. Christopher Hurlow is going to move into 9th. And Greg Mall, last week's winner, as I said, is going to move into that 8th position. In front of him, Scott Simley in the number 6 gate. He's trying to track down that 39 of Dwayne Dunn. Dwayne's been one of the drivers we see stay out, so he's trying a little bit easier of a strategy than Jamie Walker, still staying out a little bit Aaron Bennett. Staying out a little bit longer, but not being the last car on old tires. So it's worked out for him so far. He started 8th, now into 6th, and he's trying to work the 88 of Michael Atkins Jr. Evan, up front, Aaron Bennett, he's caught him. He's down to 1 second there on the front straightaway. They're able to see each other there on the same straightaway, so it's going to get close.
Yeah, 1.2 seconds and now 1 second flat. So 0.2 of a second per lap is what Aaron Bennett has been making up. And he can now see very clearly the 54 off in front of him. There is a truck in between these guys that he's going to have to deal with. It is Shane Hawther, who just lost his lead lap status to Matthews. Put him a lap down just a couple of laps ago. So 14th position is currently the lucky dog spot. And the Jag Chevy kind of hopes that if there is to be a yellow in this race, it would happen rather soon before Tim Matthews catches up to Robert Gillenwater, who is now the last driver on the lead lap. If the 4 gets past, he then takes over the lucky dog position. But the 11 machine isn't necessarily a slack. I mean, he's keeping up with the 54, which could be an issue for the 3 because, Gabe, not even if the 11 challenges, I don't think that the 11 of Shane Hawthorne is going to intentionally make it difficult for Aaron Bennett to pass. But it is going to be a lot harder to get around a guy that's the same speed as you compared to some of these other guys who are substantially slower than you are. So even though the 11 might not do it on purpose, he could be a critical role in this battle for the race lead as Aaron Bennett closes to half a second.
Yeah, and at any point between when Aaron Bennett gets there, he has the right to try and fight for that lead lap position. One thing I want to point out, Evan, as that gap gets to half a second and the 3 of Aaron Bennett closes in, we're getting close to the point where if they can go just a few more laps, they can make it on one more stop. I've seen it's about 33 laps the average for the guys up front that are not short pitting. If they can go just a little bit longer, I think they can make it on one stop here in just a few laps. The 11 moves to the outside to let Aaron Bennett through.
You figure in 2 laps from now, when we get to lap number 100, it is going to be 67 laps to go, and you cut that in half, you're still shy of the 35 lap number, which we have seen these guys easily be able to make tonight. So we could already be talking about, as you noted, second to last time maybe before these guys come down to the pit lane late in this race. Gillenwater is 12th. He's now the last driver of the lead lap, even though he was in the same position, but in 13th. That's because guys are starting to trickle down to the pit lane. Don't forget about Jamie Walker, 14th and 1 lap down again. I think that based on the numbers that he's been needing on fuel, he'll be down pit road rather soon, just as Tim Matthews and Aaron Bennett will. So not sure if that's going to work out for the 17 team. I think you might have to start to focus on the 54 and the 3 car as the leaders in this race, because here comes Aaron Bennett on the outside, and a smart move by Tim Matthews. Just as he gets caught, he heads down to the pit lane, and Aaron Bennett takes over the race lead.
Move that 3 truck into the lead, that BNC Landscaping Chevy Silverado. That 3 truck's going to move into the top spot. Bobby Terrell's going to move into second, Seth Foudy into third on that final podium position. See where Tim Matthews is going to come out. Now we're going to have to watch Jamie Walker. He's going to get back on the lead lap, but where is he going to come out as he gets loose there? I see he's getting loose there coming off of turn number 2, but I keep saying it may not work, but it may just cycle out perfectly. He's had to have done his homework, Evan, to want to try and do this strategy, to kind of stick to it. Because most drivers, once they kind of realize that the sprint pit is not working, they're going to try and get back on sequence, but he has not tried. He's not even attempted to pit near the leaders.
Yeah, I think that's, oftentimes some people like to take the strategy of, pitting when they want to and don't necessarily make your decision based on somebody else. But I think based on what we've seen tonight, I like the call, that we just saw where Aaron Bennett catches up to at time race leader Tim Matthews. That's exactly what a 54 pits. I think it's quite crucial to do so. Coming down to the pit lane this time, Bobby Terrell down pit road, Seth Foudy down pit road, as well as Ralph Vorsey going to come down to the pit lane. So Greg Mall dives down to the inside. Here's where you get that big influx of trucks in about 3 to 4 laps, and really in the blink of an eye, everybody gets service all at once. And I think right to that point, Gabe, they all pit when the leaders pit. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Here comes Aaron Bennett. He's going to come down the pit road. That's going to leave the 39 and Dwayne Dunn now out on the racetrack. As I said, he's been one of the later pit drivers here on these sequence of pit stops. Lap 103, Aaron Bennett's going to come and top off that fuel tank. One more stop should do it for everybody in the field as we got a car sideways in our pit stall. As I saw there on the inside of the racetrack, but looks like everything's normal. As Aaron Bennett comes into pit. I thought he missed his pit stall there, but he's okay. You see one driver coming out of this.
Did a burnout in the box, but he got into the pit stall nonetheless. He just missed it the first time, locked it out, went too far. Backed it up, not necessarily the recommended thing to do, but he got in the box, he got service, he's out and away. So was Aaron Bennett, who's going to get back out of the racetrack at the inside. You see him on the apron, and you see flying by, there goes the 54 and Tim Matthews for what we predict may be the second to last time tonight.
Where's Jamie Walker going to sort out? Looks like he's already in the 4th position, and Aaron Bennett is going to cycle into the 2nd position. Looks like it's Dwayne Dunn. He's coming on the pit road now, so that's going to cycle everybody through. And yeah, Tim Matthews into the lead this time by here on lap number 105. Aaron Bennett into 2nd, and Jamie Walker, he's coming to pit road already. So, Evan, we're right at that point where you predicted it. He's already a full tank of gas behind the rest of the field.
And we knew that this point would come, and normally this is where you get the clear message where, if Walker was out in front and leading this race and then they cross each other up, then you end up even. You know, coming down pit road that one extra time, and it's 3 laps later, so you could argue otherwise, but basically they pitted at the same time this time. So this is the point where you find out, is pitting one more time worth it to get one more fresh set of tires? Does that tire advantage make up for the 30 some odd seconds it takes you to get down to pit road speed and get back up? The answer, I think, very clearly is no, because he was 23 seconds slower. So I don't think that call worked out for the 17 team, and if they're going to want to go at the same distance that they have been going tonight, Gabe, he's not going to be able to go 63 laps left in this race. So I think that he's just going to have to bite the bullet, split the rest of the race in half, and, you know, kind of veer from the strategy. The good news for these other guys is their strategy kind of lines them up perfectly to cut this last 67 lap chunk in half. So I think that the moral of the story, 35 laps was the call.
Evan, I gotta believe there's some steam coming out of that 3 of Aaron Bennett, because he has caught him 3 pit cycles in a row. He's gotten to his back bumper, and as soon as he does, the pit cycle happens, and he ends up losing 3.5 seconds. That it is oh so close. He can taste the lead, but he's just not there. Now he's 3.5 seconds back. He's closing in about 3/10 a lap. But you add up the laps, it may not be enough. They may be back on pit road by the time he gets there.
We know that Aaron Bennett is constantly playing catch-up. I think it has to be somewhat frustrating for him as well to catch Tim Matthews and then just have Tim Matthews come down pit road. Doesn't make much of a difference in the long run, but I think the 3 machine. Yeah, well, I think that he just kind of wants to pass him and, you know, get the lead back from him. And I feel like, you know, when the 54 comes down pit road, Aaron Bennett is kind of bummed out about that. Watch the intervals now, because now it becomes increasingly important where they are when they come down to the pit lane. Again, roughly lap 130, 135 is when these guys should be down pit road for the final time tonight. So Aaron Bennett's got 25 laps to make up 3.5 seconds. I don't think the 3's out of this thing yet. Keep an eye on that BNC Chevy. He's in a good spot.
This might be the moment where Aaron Bennett flips the strategy on Tim Matthews and short pits and jumps to the lead, and then he puts Tim Matthews in the position. If he can catch him and then a couple laps earlier come to pit road and kind of checkmate the 54, that may be the winning strategy.
We'll find out. I was also keeping an eye on names like Bobby Terrell, Justin Michael. They're 7.4, 7.8 seconds back. I don't think that is a realistic position to maybe win this race from unless we get a caution. If we do, fair game, because honestly, the guys up front got a big gap very early on in this race. I can't honestly say, Gabe, that they've been losing much time since then. 7 seconds, right about on par with what I think we would have expected to see. So you got other guys still on the lead lap. We're down to 12 drivers on the lead lap. Jason Jacoby is the last driver on the lead lap at the moment. But the good news is he's about 7 seconds in front of Tim Matthews at the moment. But I don't think, with the amount of time that's still left in this race, that he will finish on the lead lap if things stay green to this point. But I think, in all honesty, this is a 2-horse race, Tim Matthews and Aaron Bennett. I would say if Aaron Bennett doesn't pass Tim Matthews, if he gets to Matthews and Matthews pits, I think Tim Matthews is going to win the race. Aaron Bennett can get in front of Tim Matthews and then pit before the 54. I think that might be his only hope, based on how we've seen the 54 react to when that 3 catches him, because Tim Matthews pitting the second Aaron Bennett gets to him, Gabe, is really just, I mean, it's a smart move by Tim Matthews, but it really takes any hope that Aaron Bennett had away, because that immediately gives the benefit back to the 54 team. So it's a smart move by Tim Matthews. I think Aaron Bennett's going to have to try to outsmart him somehow.
I think if Aaron Bennett, if he was smart and he could realize what's going on, he would get to about a second, because we've seen Tim Matthews pit after Aaron Bennett gets about a half a second behind him. If Aaron Bennett can get within about 8/8 or 1 second, and he short pits, he may move to the lead, momentarily maybe, but that might just be enough with the amount of laps we'll have left. If he can hold off that 54 on just a little bit older tires and let that 54 pit after him, it might work. If I were Aaron Bennett in that position, that's what I would try and do.
Matthews going to catch up to the number 4 this time by just some lap traffic. Robert Gillenwater going to find himself now 2 laps down, 13th through 18th. Their drivers 1 lap down. It's Greg Mall, Shane Hawthorne, James Nunn, Jamie Walker, Michael Raitt, and as well Scott Formosa. You also have about 6-7 drivers 2 laps down now, 19th through 24th. Gillenwater, Herring, Kleber, Howell, Hendricks, and Robinette. all the way through the number 24 spot. We await these guys to come down to the pit lane one final time in tonight's Chris Kyle 250. And speaking of which, we'll step aside for one final time and we'll go LSRTV nonstop so you don't miss a moment of the action. Tim Matthews, your race leader at lap 116. You're watching the 2016-2017 United Sim Racing B&C Lawn and Landscaping Truck Series on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
It was more than impressive, I have to say. I mean, the track is identical to the real track. I was blown away how realistic it is. Every little bump, every little spray paint, everything is exactly like you were there at the track. It was a great experience.
This is a warm-up lap now. Tires to get warmed up. The engine. Breathe a little bit here when you go through that little bump there. And then it's flat pretty much all the way through here, just about. Hard braking. This is the slowest part of the track. And then I've done, I did many races in Formula 3, Formula 2. And then I did the very last race they did there in Group C in 1983 in the 956 Porsche. That's when Beloff got the lap record at the 6:11. I think I was second on the grid with the 6:14 or something, which was, those cars were awesome around there, of course, like any car is, that speed. And this is the corner of all corners here, the Schwerenkreuz. Flat all the way into it. And then trail brake all the way into the apex here. And then hard at it again to get good speed down the hill here. Mega fast down this hill here. Just jump from one apex to the next. Gotta be super precise here.
It's almost exactly like the real thing. So, it is certainly realistic enough to get past the very, a lot of the initial hurdles you have when you try to learn to drive a race car, So, I think it's an excellent tool to learn how to race for sure, or learn to drive a car on a racetrack.
Back live from the Texas Motor Speedway, working lap number 123 of consecutive green flag action. In tonight's Chris Kyle 250, it's the 6th race on the United Sim Racing B&C Lawn and Landscaping Truck Series here on LSRTV at iRacing Live. We await in suspense of the final trip down to the pit lane in the green flag conditions, and when that stop takes place may determine who ends up at victory lane in this one. I said about 1:35, I think, Gabe, is when these guys should be down pit road. but I think that relatively soon, if not already, these guys are pretty close to being able to make it on fuel if they pit now. So the gap between P1 and P2, Tim Matthews, Aaron Bennett, 7/10 of a second. Matthews has been out-pitting Aaron Bennett or short-pitting him all night long. It's been giving Aaron Bennett the benefit on the longer run, and we've been debating under the commercial break, what is the best call here? Bennett, should he pit earlier, get the fresher tires? And oh, a close call there! And that's not going to help the 3 out as Louis Robinette came down to the pit lane early in turn 3, and Aaron Bennett not happy on the radio. Close call.
Close call for the 3. It's going to lose him just a little bit of time. It was 7/10 of it, or excuse me. Gosh, can you imagine how much time he made up on that lap? Because he was at 7/10 of a second. Now he's at 6/10, even with that little checkup there for Louis Robinette there coming to pit road. But a little bit farther back here, we've got Bobby Terrell still solidly in that top 3 position. He's running in 3rd, Seth Foudy in 4th, and Michael Axon Jr. Then 5th, where he's been all race started there. He practiced first. He had a very quick car, but now running in top 5. And it's closing in, Evan. You know, like you said, we were debating, but I didn't think Aaron Bennett would catch him this quickly. 135 is kind of the threshold where you want to be, and he may catch him before that point.
He's been getting to him right about on the money with that 35-lap run over the course of the night. So if he would be able to get there just a little bit sooner, it would be big. He's only making up now, though, about a 1/2 of a second per lap. So I don't think there is too much different about this run in comparison to what they.
You were saying it's down to half a second.
Basically all night long. And the thing here is, the last run there was a truck in between them. Can't really, give you a definitive answer on how big of a factor that was, but that was a big thing, and they're going to have to deal with that again as you see the 54 going to weave through lap traffic. Good news is the 34 of George Hendricks goes high, but he is going to occupy the outside on the front stretch, so that is going to hurt that 3 of Aaron Bennett just a little bit, and who knows how tight this thing's going to be come the end of it. That could be a very crucial couple of tenths of a second.
Louis Robinette, the next car that the 54 is going to get to. That gap's down to 3/10 of a second, so about 3 or 4 car lengths there as a car is coming off of pit road there on the inside. It's like the 75 of James Nunn there on the inside of the racetrack. 5 laps to go till that threshold where we may be able to make it on one more stop. And where is Jamie Walker? Just want to update you on him. He's 13th, 1 lap down. So is he going to have to pit here in the next couple laps?
At least, yeah.
It looks like the
once,
tires,
if not twice. So I don't think he's going to wait for him.
The tires are already starting to fail him because he's now getting overhauled by the 87 of Justin Michael. And it's down to 3/10 of a second flat here as they come here on lap number 130. Excuse me. Aaron Bennett is trying to catch that 54 before he comes to pit road. And we were debating this. Is it better for Aaron Bennett to try and short pit or to be on the exact same strategy as that 54? Because we saw as he's going to try and look to the bottom side here on the front straightaway, he's been as fast or just a little bit faster than that 54 all night when they're on the same strategy.
This is going to be a crucial couple of laps in determining who's going to be the winner of this race. A battle for the number 1 position at a corner number 2 inside, which is key for Aaron Bennett because it doesn't allow Tim Matthews to come down to the pit lane if they keep it side by side off of the corner. How about a 2-wide battle for the race lead? Lap traffic bringing up the rears as well. The 12 machine closing in, that time by inside of Aaron Bennett. 2/10 of a second better over the 54. He'll have the inside at 1 and 2 and hoping to take over control of the race lead. The 54 not going to give up. They're still side by side off of the corner. What does the 12 car do? Does he force a 3 wide or does he wait?
I think if I were Aaron Bennett, I'd pit now because that's going to force that 54 to run 1 extra lap as he's going to have that lap car. And now Aaron Bennett in that 3 truck is clear of the 54 for that lead position. And now he's got the 12 to deal with Greg Mall there on the inside. I think this is the perfect.
Needs to pit now. He's in the lead.
He needs to pit now.
Come down now.
Yep.
We'll see what the 12 is going to do.
Seth Foudy coming down.
Yeah, so it looks like we've hit the window where you should be able to go. If the 12 goes to the inside of the 3, that could be bad because that could box Aaron Bennett out of pit road. Yeah, up the inside. Does Tim Matthews come down to the pit lane, though? He is going to stay out at a corner number 4, and I think he's leaving the door open for Aaron Bennett. Again, 135 is still 2 laps away. That's about the number that we thought would make sense. if these guys wanted to run the same distance that they have all night long on a run. But people are coming down to the pit lane from the middle of the pack on back. I think that somebody's got to come down.
Now, is Aaron Bennett, if that 54 pits, is he going to stay on that same strategy of pitting a few laps afterward? See if any of them come to pit road this time by?
Got him.
Not it. Yep, 54. 54 coming to pit road.
I think that might be the move that Tim Matthews wins this race on. We will see, because Aaron Bennett, now you have to question yourself. Matthews is down pit road. Now, Aaron Bennett did catch Tim Matthews a little bit quicker on this run game than on the other ones. And you could argue you want to have the better tires at the end to challenge. Now the question is, does Aaron Bennett pit this lap, take a little bit of a tire advantage, and only lose a little bit of time, Gabe? Or does he want to wait a couple of laps? He'll lose more time, but his tires will be that much better at the end. He's coming down pit road right behind the 12 truck. Oh, and sideways in front of him, and checks up the 3. Not good.
He's going to lose even more time for that 3 truck of Aaron Bennett as they come down to pit road. The 12 of Greg Mall going to come down in front of him. Tim Matthews exit onto the apron to get it back onto the racetrack. Who's going to cycle into the lead should be Seth Foudy. Comes to pit road. So he comes to pit road a few laps after giving the signal that he was coming down to make his final pit stop of the night. Michael Atkins Jr. in the 88 also on pit road, and the 24 of Bobby Terrell still on the racetrack.
17's on as well. So there you go. Jamie Walker in at the same time as Aaron Bennett and those guys, and he's already a lap down. So that just kind of puts the final nail in the coffin. And for once, I think that we got we made the right prediction on the strategy call. Like I said, Jamie Walker has won plenty of races on a call, and I think tonight just wasn't his night. He's back out on the pit lane. Now we'll see where they blend out. The 54 on the outside, the 3 is still in the middle of the racetrack, and to the point, as expected, is going to be Tim Matthews. Once everybody in front of him comes down to the pit lane, the gap between the two now is the important thing.
Look at the gap 2 laps can get you on new tires. A second and a half between the 80, or excuse me, yeah, about a second and a half between the 54 and the 3 of Aaron Bennett. Justin Michael in the lead right now, and that 54 is closing in on him 1.6 seconds back. So Justin Michael going to lose that lead here in the next few laps, running that same strategy, I think, as Jamie Walker in the 17, kind of off pitting from the rest of the field. Looks like he's going to lead his first few laps of the night here on lap number 138 as they come down. Getting closer and closer to the finish, and see if Aaron Bennett can close that gap. He's still got that 12 of Greg Mall between the two.
Yeah, now here's the thing with the 54. Every single time tonight we've seen, the difference between these guys be a couple of laps. And Aaron Bennett in that number 3 spot at the moment. Justin Michael was scored as our race leader. You see the 87 is not yet pitted. His tires are obviously older. He's a lot slower. He'll come down to the pit lane this time off of quarter number 4, and Aaron Bennett's going to be able to get by him. I think that not only is the 12 going to be an annoyance here to the 3, but also keep this in mind. Aaron Bennett only 1.4 seconds back sounds great, Gabe, considering he's been making up 4.5, 5 second differences. But again, he stayed out longer on those other runs, and therefore his tires were, 4 or 5 laps better. His tires are only 1 lap better, which basically they're equal. So he's got to be 1.4 seconds faster on equal tires, essentially, as opposed to being 5 seconds better on significantly better tires. I think Tim Matthews, and we kind of said it when Aaron Bennett got in front of that 54 machine, I said pit. You want to pit when you're in front of him. I think Tim Matthews made the right call on this last cycle.
It was 1.7 seconds between the two a couple laps ago as the 87 got passed by the 54, and now it was 1.4 last time by, and now 1.7. So that 54 Tim Matthews is pulling away. Evan, I think that may have been the move for the win. Aaron Bennett staying out and Tim Matthews short pitting. He pulled off the good strategy now to 1.9 seconds the gap. So it's 2 seconds between the two leaders. Bobby Terrell is now moved into that 3rd position, or at least he stayed there. He's making up a little bit of time, though. He was 8 seconds before the pit stops, now to 6.3 as the 54 encounters just a little bit of traffic.
Aaron Bennett, by the way, lost another 0.2 of a second on that time around the racetrack. He is now 1.9 seconds back, and again, we've kind of been able to look at tonight's race in an interesting light because every race has pit strategy. Even the races that you don't get to, aside from the green flag pit stops, necessarily does have pit strategy. Talking about guys going with 2 tires, guys staying out under cautions, and kind of seeing how that shuffles up the running over the course of the night. A lot of guys don't like, races that go green all the way, and a lot of guys don't necessarily like calling races that go green all the way because, compared to a race where you get a lot of side-by-side race starts, not a lot happens overall. But I love races like this where you can see and predict and kind of see how this strategy plays out. Aaron Bennett now 2 seconds back, I think, finding himself in a critical position where he wants a shot at it. I think at this point he's going to need a yellow. He's in the same boat as Bobby Terrell. And again, though, as you noted, Bobby Terrell is only 6 seconds back. I think over the last 3 stops, that 24 truck has actually been the best out of anybody inside the top 3.
Aaron Bennett encountering a few lap cars as he's trying to make up the gap. It was 2 seconds last time, 2.2. Now the gap at 54 is just slowly pulling away and seeing that 3 truck of Aaron Bennett get smaller and smaller in his mirror. 2 or 3 lap trucks between the two as they go off onto the back straightaway on lap number 144. I think Tim Matthews has got this one. Jason Jacoby, I want to talk about him real quick, and Scott Simley right in front of him as the battle for the lead kind of equalizes there. Scott Simley started 15th, Jason Jacoby in 16th. We saw him work his way up front there early, and the tires kind of went away from him. He's worked his way back up. He's the last car on the lead lap in 7th, and the 15th starter, Scott Simley, also in 6th.
There's only 7 trucks total at the moment on the lead lap, and that Jason Jacoby machine has actually been doing a good job of, being able to hang on to that lead lap status. Again, he was 13th and the last driver on the lead lap not all that long ago, and a couple of guys not happy over the radio. The 3 is not very happy. There was contact in front of him. The 14 and the 12 got together, and we'll get a second look at this one, and now a black flag has been assessed, and the 14 has been parked, Gabe. We didn't catch this as we were looking at the times, but it's kind of quite clear when you look at the replay. Let's take a look at this, and we'll see if we can wind it back for you. There was an incident on lap 143 involving the 14 and the 12. Christopher Hurlow at a corner number 2. He got sideways off of the corner, and the 12 got around him, and the 14 just took him out. The 12 went to the high side, and the 14 dumped him. I'm not sure what else you can say, and it was right in front of the 3 of Aaron Bennett, which not only is a bad idea because he's one of your race leaders, but he's also a league admin. I don't know if the intention there was the 14 wasn't happy with the 12, Gabe. I don't know if the intention there was the 14 was trying to get a caution to help somebody out, but Chris Hurlow intentionally takes the 12 out in turn number 4. Luckily, that 12 machine of Greg Mall was able to hang on, and we didn't get a caution from it, and it's kind of sad to see the 14 machine make a move like that. You'll get a second look at this one now. Again, we missed it originally. It was a couple of laps ago. You'll see the intentional contact between the two.
Yeah, I don't really have any other way of explaining it than the 12 just kind of got taken out there, but he was able to hang on to it still inside the top 10. While that was happening, Jamie Walker's actually retired from this race, so he's given up on that strategy. He's now 4 laps down, and he is out of the session. So he has parked that number 17 truck.
So a lot of interesting things transpiring late in this one. Again, as a result of the contact you saw on that LSRTV replay, the 14 machine has been parked. Christopher Hurlow was removed from the race. His night is done, and we will keep you up to date if any sort of subsequent penalty follows going on into the next race. Again, the next race on the year comes from the Talladega Superspeedway. That is not until January the 7th, so there is quite some time between this race and the next one. And as you noted, Jamie Walker has parked it. His night is done. And again, it would have been a rough finish for him. I don't think necessarily a top 15 Gabe is something that I would throw away and park. And obviously, I know that the strategy card that he wanted to play didn't work for him, so you can understand it. And Jamie Walker's a guy who I think is going to have a strong enough season, to have this one not necessarily affect him that badly. But there's a lot of guys who would like to just, get a top 15 finish. Nonetheless, Walker retiring is going to drop him back to about 27th position. I don't think he's going to go any further back from that. And the good news is it gives everybody behind him a +1.
Evan, we may have a battle brewing. It was 2.4 seconds the gap a few laps ago. It's down to 1.8 between the 3 of Aaron Bennett and Tim Matthews. So it looks like that little contact between the 2 cars may have just woken up something behind that 3 truck, because he's taking off 0.2 of a second a lap, and that's enough time.
Matthews has some traffic around him too.
Yeah,
I think it's slowing to 54 down too.
well, Aaron Bennett's going to have to deal with that traffic too. So if he can get through them well, we may have a battle for the lead in the next few laps.
Going to be running out of time soon. There's going to be 15 laps to go from the Texas Motor Speedway this time around. Tim Matthews going to go up the inside at the number 40 to Michael Waite. Waite is going to fall now 2 laps down, but nonetheless the 54 has been able to navigate his way around him. So what does Aaron Bennett do last time by? Put down a 34, so he picked up 0.2 of a second in comparison to Tim Matthews' 36. So, you know, the 3 machine is coming. But again, everything that Tim Matthews has to deal with is the exact same thing that Aaron Bennett's going to have to deal with. Maybe pushing it a little bit harder. Maybe Tim Matthews working the gap a little bit, taking his time, getting through the traffic could have been a part of that. Aaron Bennett, if you drive a little bit harder through the traffic, maybe if you get a little bit lucky and catch him not in the entry or the exit of the corner, that could be important as well. So we'll find out, but all of a sudden, it looked like Aaron Bennett was falling back. Maybe he was playing hooky game and saving the tires, because the gap has gone from over 2 seconds down to 1.3, and if he can continue this pace, he'll get there.
Well, you know, one thing that's going to go into the 3's favor is once these guys go a lap down and they move a little bit back from the leader, they have no real hope of getting back onto the lead lap. And if we see the gap between the 54 and the 48 behind them, if we see that gap grow, those guys up front, the first car is off of the lead lap, they'll kind of give up on racing that 3 and trying to get back around the 54. So, but I don't think that's going to happen. That 48's racing that 54 pretty hard to get back on the lead lap.
Next driver in front that the 3 is going to have to deal with is the 80 of Scott Formosa, who is 2 laps down, not necessarily fighting for anything. Jason Jacoby is the 1, and the 48, as I noted, is Michael Waite. Jacoby is the first driver 1 lap down. Waite is the first driver 2 laps down. So there is a relative reason for these guys to not want to give up on that 54, because, you know, the ones in Lucky Dog spot, if Waite can go from 2 to 1 laps down and get a yellow, he could stay out, get back to the lead lap. So there's absolute reason for these guys to fight with a 54. They don't gain much by fighting with Aaron Bennett. It was 1.2 seconds the last time by, and at 11 laps to go, the updated number is going to be a 1.2 as well. So he didn't gain anything that time. In fact, he was slower.
But he also had to work his way around a lap car, so maybe just holding him up just a little bit, but it's not really helping his case. If he's not gaining time every single lap, he has to gain time every lap if he wants to catch that 54, and he's going to have to haul it because he still has to deal with those 2 lap cars, the 48 and the 1, and they're still battling pretty hard there. They dropped back from the 54, so it may get a little bit easier, but we're inside 10 laps to go.
Reminder that when we get to 5 laps to go or less, a caution flag would end this race. We would not have an opportunity for a restart. So if a restart is going to happen late in this race, then it better come soon or you're going to run out of time. Slow truck at the inside of turn number 4, going to be coming down to the pit lane. It's Ralph Forstay. He's able to get down to the pit lane soon enough that it's not going to affect the race leaders, and they're able to go by a single foul on the outside. Now the gap is just 0.9 of a second, but again, Aaron Bennett is making up this time, but he still has to get by 2 pieces of lap traffic, and how friendly or how hostile the 1 and the 48 will be may be what determines the winner of this race.
Looks like that 1's got to the back bumper of the 54 again, so he's going to try and fight to get back on the lead lap. He's moving to the outside, trying to get around in that Domino's truck, trying to get back on the lead lap around the leader of the 54, Tim Matthews. This may allow that 3 of Aaron Bennett to catch him, now down to 0.8 of a second, or it's a late 10th of a second. 8.9 the gap. Went down just a little bit, but not enough to catch him. It's going to be 7 laps to go this time by. 167 is the end of this race. And it's going to get close, Evan.
Nearly at that point of no return again. The 1 fighting to get back onto the lead lap. If he can pass the 54, the 48 is fighting to go from 2 laps down to 1 lap down. And there's more lap traffic on the horizon. Ricky Howell Jr. is running way back in 23rd. He is fighting for position with Michael Warren in 28th. This is a complete headache for both Matthews and Bennett because every single truck around these guys are fighting for something. They're too wide now, and the track is blocked for the 54. He can't go anywhere. He's boxed in.
He's got to be patient. Looks like he's going to duck to the bottom side of the 18 of Ricky Howell Jr. as they go into the tri-oval. or excuse me, the quad oval, as Evan called it earlier. That's going to put them side by side as they go into turn number 1. 0.8 of a second, still the gap. Closing in just a little bit. It's a gaggle of lap cars, 4 of them, between the 2 leaders.
Bennett needs to find a hole, and he's got to go for it. He can't afford to sit back any further. He'll catch the 28 this time in 3 and 4. Michael Warren going to go up to the outside of the racetrack. It'll allow Aaron Bennett to go to the bottom, and he'll try to march his way back forward again. But Tim Matthews, despite the fact that those guys were side by side in front of him in the quarter, right now 5 laps to go, he did an exceptional job getting through. And Aaron Bennett, he passed the truck, but he lost 0.3 of a second that lap alone.
Gap now to 1.1 is, looking back, Bobby Terrell still not losing any time. He's still at 6.7 seconds gap. So if we're to the threshold now, we don't get if we get a caution, the race is over. But he's got a pretty decent truck. I know they're having to deal with lap traffic up here at the front, but he still had a fast truck in the later stages of this race. The 54 is now pulling away bit by bit from the 3 of Aaron Bennett. He's through the lap traffic. That should be the last time he sees any other car in front of him for the remainder of this race. Next car is Michael Waters, almost a full straightaway ahead of him, so he's got clear track ahead for the remainder of this race.
Good news for the 54 machine, and again, Aaron Bennett, I think if you take the lap traffic out of it, may have just been able to put up a fight for this one. Sometimes it's the lap traffic that hurts the guy up front, and it's what allows the guy chasing to catch him and pass him. And I think tonight, the lap traffic just happened to be the kryptonite of the driver in second position. Next time by, we'll take lap 166, and it'll be 2 laps to go tonight from the Texas Motor Speedway. The gap remains at 1.1 second. Assuming that nothing happens between the 54, the 1, and the 48, they're on top of each other, off to 3 and 4. Tim Matthews should be good to go.
Coming to 2 laps to go this time by, that 54 out by more than a second. It looks like that 1 is just going to hang back and let the leader do his thing up front. Now the gap is 1.267 between the top 2 drivers. I think it's just about over here, Evan, as they come to the back straightaway here for the I'll try to use a fancy word, didn't happen. The second to last lap here at Texas. 1.2 seconds to gap. I don't think it's going to happen for Aaron Bennett unless that 1 gets to the back bumper, which really don't see why he would do that.
The 3's been really pushing it as Tim Matthews collects the white flag. Aaron Bennett, he's been getting the left side tires down on the white line, sliding the truck a little bit, just trying to dig anything extra out of it he could. But that slide the last time at a quarter number 4 cost him an additional 0.4 of a second. Looks like the final gap going to be somewhere around 1.6. But for Tim Matthews, it was a night of no cautions. Green start to finish. 250 miles later, it'll be Tim Matthews for the final time at a quarter number 4, checkered flag, in the first win on this 2016-17 campaign. Matthews, your winner from Texas. A P2 tonight for Aaron Bennett. He has to settle for about that 1.6 second deficit. Terrell, third. Foudy, Atkins, your top 5. We'll give a shout out to Scott Simley, the only other driver to finish on the lead lap in P6. A fantastic night of racing. Tim Matthews made the first pit stop on the last cycle, and he was able to get the job done and hang on over Aaron Bennett. Bennett still going to like to take home the P2, but both of these guys were looking for their first win on the year, and the 54 beats the 3 to it.
I got to say, a commendable job to the entire field of 30 cars, because they went green to checker, all without a wreck, a single caution here at Texas. You don't see that very often. You barely even see that in the official side of racing here on iRacing, but in the leagues, it's a little bit more rules, but still, it's a very rare sight.
Tim Matthews has some celebrating to do on the front straightaway. First win on this 2016-17 campaign for the Kentucky Wildcats. Toyota Tundra. Tim Matthews, your winner tonight from the Great American Speedway. Picks up the W in the Chris Kyle 250. He joins Riley Thompson, Ashton Crowder, Justin Michael, and Greg Mall as winners on this, the 2016-17 campaign. As he heads off the Gatorade Victory Lane, we'll head trackside and talk with him in just a moment. We'll be back on LSRTV and iRacing Live in a few for post-race interviews. Stick around for the LSRTV post-race show. You're watching our continuing coverage of the 2016-2017 United Sim Racing BNC Lawn and Landscaping Truck Series. We go to Victory Lane on the other side.
So obviously you guys have come from the virtual world to reality. What do you think about a sim racer coming in the real world? What were your expectations coming in?
Coming from iRacing, a computer program basically down here to a real world scenario where you got all these guys with all these years and years and years and years of experience that are also using iRacing as a tool to come out and run against those guys and beat them and finish ahead of them and show them, there's a thing or two you might be missing is fantastic. I mean, that's a skill that I know I don't have, and I can appreciate it because I'm terrible at iRacing.
Glenn was able to come into the team. We did a lot of preseason testing, actually a full season's worth of testing before we even started the season. And he came in, there was a lot of sectors that he was the fastest guy out of our team. And Sparky and I looking at data, trying to catch up to him through some turns. And of course, some places Sparky will be the fastest or I'll be the fastest, and Glenn is able to learn from, what we're doing and vice versa. So it was excellent to see his pace right off of the bat, and speed was never a worry. It's about qualifying well. Qualifying is very difficult, and pretty important in this series. And so is, being able to make effective passes without contact. It's very difficult to pass in these cars, so it's not easy being here.
I think the level of ultra competitiveness in here, where when normally when you make a pass, you're making a pass with 2 cars involved. But if we're making a pass in this series, you have to remember there's 5 cars waiting behind you. If you mess up that pass, they're going by you.
Yeah, it's like sharks.
Yeah, you're surrounded by sharks. But no, it's been I've been very surprised and very pleased with it. And obviously I have the 2 champions I'm sitting between. John actually statistically is the most successful MX-5 Cup driver in the world. He owns every record that you would want, none of the bad records.
Maybe some of them, I don't know.
Maybe some of those. And Sparky's one of the quickest guys in the paddock, and obviously the champion now. So I couldn't have picked a better team to be with 6 Sideways. I'm looking at what everybody in the paddock calls gold. I mean, they will pay to look at John and Sparky's data, and I get full access to it. And I get to see where I'm doing well and see where I can improve. And I've been really pleased with my progress.
The straights are unbelievably long. The first time you come here, everyone tells you, you'll be flat out 6th gear for 20 seconds. First time I was here, I lifted halfway down the straight. I didn't believe that it was still going. I was waiting to brake, and I was back on the power. And the Porsche curves are extremely fast and extremely narrow, so it's a tricky track. And every year I've come here, you learn something new every time.
Le Mans is so fast. Wherever you accelerate, you are over 150 miles per hour. Going there, I realized everything you have done before was nothing.
Welcome back live to the Texas Motor Speedway. Your winner tonight in the Chris Kyle 250 is Tim Matthews. We'll go trackside to victory lane in a moment. First, we're going to take a look at tonight's LSRTV full race results presented by BNC Lawn and Landscaping Service, LLC. Based in Frankfort, Delaware, you can check out BNC for all your landscaping needs, including turf care, mulching, snow removal, and more. Professional, licensed, and insured. For more information, you can contact Aaron Bennett at BC_lawn_ and_landscaping@yahoo.com. Your top 3 will be trackside with them in just a minute. It's Tim Matthews, Aaron Bennett, and Bobby Terrell. 1, 2, 3. Only 3 other drivers came home tonight inside on the lead lap, rather, for that matter. Seth Foudy, P4, Michael Atkins in 5th, and Scott Simley through the number 6 spot as well. Jason Jacoby came home 7th, first driver 1 lap down. Justin Michael in the number 8 spot. Greg Mall, P9, and Dwayne Dunn rounds out your top 10.
Brian Harvey in the 67 starts off the good drivers outside the top 10 in 11th. 12th position goes to Michael Waters in the 55. The 11 of Shane Hawthorne comes home in 13th. 14th is going to go to Michael Waite. We saw him battling up there with the leaders, trying to get back, hit one of his laps. Scott Formosa comes home in 15th. 16th is Justin Cleaver. Robert Gillenwater comes home in 17th, 2 laps down as well. 18th is going to go to Scott House. Stephen Herring is going to come home in 19th. And James Dunn, first car 3 laps down, comes home in 20th.
A couple of other guys were still on track when this race finished up. George Hendricks in 21st, Ricky Howell Jr. 22nd, Michael Warren, Louis Robinette, and Ralph Borste through to 25th position, and then after that, these guys were behind the fence and done. You know the stories behind Christopher Hurlow, P26, and Jimmy Walker in 27th, and it was an early exit for the likes of Randy Tessar in 28th, Keith Butt in 29th, and Michael Fravert in 30th. That's a look top to bottom at your LSRTV full race results. I know that Tim Matthews has been searching for it, and tonight he picks up his first win on the 2016-2017 campaign. Your winner tonight for the Texas Motor Speedway is Trackside, and victory laid with us. Tim, congratulations. This was a race that I think we'd kind of been waiting on for quite some time. Not the fact that we were at Texas, but one of these things to go green start to finish. We've seen you guys do it in the past. We knew it was going to come again at some point, and earlier on in this race, it really looked like you and Aaron Bennett versus Jamie Walker. And we had a lot of time tonight to talk about the strategy and see how it worked out. And I think it's quite clear based on the results that you guys made the right call. So you got that part hammered down. Then you also had to beat Aaron Bennett. And you guys were able to hold him off, but it's all said and done by 1.6 seconds. Talk us through tonight with the strategy and all that, and especially with you and Aaron being basically side by side preparing to come down pit road for that final time.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew it was coming down to me and him because it really been, he's the only guy I saw my relative every run, and he kept catching me, so I figured he'd probably catch me at the end of the race, and maybe some traffic held him up there for a little bit and gave me the win, but still, all in all, it was a great night. You know, I hopped in here, didn't really practice much, so I'm surprised to come away with the win, but I love Texas. It's always one of my favorite tracks to go to, so, you know, it definitely feels good to get back in victory lane.
Long races like this, as opposed to the ones where, not the ones that are caution fest necessarily, but the ones where, you get 5, 6 yellows over the course of a run, especially later on in them. Are these races that you favor? Because I know some guys aren't huge fans of these races that are strategy based. I mean, it looked like you guys had quite the handle on it tonight.
In these league events, yeah, I definitely favor the long runs and strategy and stuff. And on the official side, I like, just hot lapping type of races where it's cautions every 7-8 laps. I think that's exciting, but I like this side of it too. And I think the first few races I got bit by short pitting and the caution coming out as soon as I pit under green. So feels good to finally have one. I didn't get bit by that, evil demon, whatever that's been chasing me around. So I love these things, man. It usually plays into my favor because I like strategy and I try to take care of my tires. So me personally, I prefer that.
I know that Kentucky got the win today over North Carolina in basketball, and you guys got the win here tonight. First one on the year for you guys. I know that momentum's a thing that we talk about a lot, and I do think to an extent it's somewhat overrated, being just a quarter of the way through the regular season. But you guys have quite some time off. We're not going to be back at a racetrack till we head off to Talladega, so you guys have 2 weeks off to kind of sit and enjoy this win, just to kind of punch through though and get your name on the board. I know has to feel good.
It does. I mean, more so. Like I said, I just have been bit in a few races already this season, so it really feels good to get a good finish and give me some confidence back. And as far as the whole season, looking forward, it really isn't going to help me too much because I'm just running a partial schedule this season, so I'm just out here for wins. I'll be in here every other race or so and looking for wins. That's really my only goal, is to just come out and run strong.
Mission accomplished tonight. You guys come across the start-finish line. First, Tim, the sponsors, the shout-outs, who makes it happen for you. Who do you want to say hi to?
I give a shout out to my teammate Mike Waters. Me and him work together, and a lot of fun. I've been trying to help bring him up to speed, and I think you're seeing results of that on track. He's getting faster and faster, so good job to him. And shout out to my wife. She gives me problems sometimes about racing on Saturday nights, and but sometimes she'll let me do it. So tonight was a good night. She let me in here. I won the race, so happy to get that done. And shout out to her for being kind to me today.
And it absolutely paid off, Tim. Congratulations. It was a fun one for us to watch tonight. Enjoy the off break for the Christmas break and New Year's, and we will see you guys soon.
All right, appreciate it.
Winner tonight, Tim Matthews. Aaron Bennett was the other driver on the flip side of that very close finish, and sure, it ends up being 1.6 seconds on the timesheet, and that's not necessarily a photo finish by any stretch of the imagination, but it was neck and neck for the better part of this one. Gabe Wood also going to be trackside with your third-place finisher, Robbie Terrell, but first, down with the driver of the number 3.
Down here on pit road, the 3 of Aaron Bennett, second yet again on the 2016-2017 season. Aaron, it's got to feel good to get back on the podium again, but it's got to suck to come up second yet again.
Not too bad. I mean, I knew when we got into the race tonight, I knew Tim was going to be hard to beat. It's his best track. One of my better tracks too, but usually Tim's just a little bit faster than me here. So I knew I had to come off kilter with strategy, and I think that screw up there at the end of the race is what really screwed me over, as I really rolled out of the gas to avoid them idiots wrecking. So I don't know.
Yeah, we saw that happen, but as soon as that happened, we really saw you start coming on strong. It almost seemed like you started working a lot harder, but did you start burning up your tires a lot more than you did earlier in the race? Because we saw you make up 3 seconds earlier, 3.5, and maybe even 4 seconds earlier in the runs. But this time you only made it about a second before the car started going away.
Yeah, I was driving too hard coming out, and I knew Tim was better than me saving tires if we were on even tires. But when I had 2 laps fresher than he did, I would lose it all at the beginning of the run because of the cycle of pit stops. But then I would gain it all right back, and I got right to him. I mean, I think the second to last green flag cycle, or the last green flag cycle, I called him and passed him, and then he pitted before I did, and I came down the next lap. I should have just done what I'd done all race long, and that was just come in 2 laps later. But I didn't want to do that. I don't know why I decided to do that. So I kind of think I shot myself in the foot, and then the people wrecking it kind of. I lost focus being admin too. I hate removing somebody from server, but we don't put up with that crap.
I'll be completely honest with you. Whenever you were side by side with the 54, we were kind of cheering you on to pit at that point, with sticking the 54 on the outside. Did you think about pitting at that point?
Nah, he would have. When I was next to him, I don't think I would have had enough gas to get to the end. I think I'd have been a lap short. And there's no way I would have saved the tires like he could have. Because at the beginning of the race, when I was the leader, he tracked me down and passed me. So, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I never thought of that till now. But I mean, I'll keep that in my back pocket from now on. But I don't know. I kind of like coming in late with the fresher tires and working up through. I'd keep running the same lap times over and over again. When I came out, I was shooting for running 29 nines to 30 flats for about 10 laps in a row before I started falling off, and it seemed to be where I would gain on him.
Now, I got to ask one more question. Did Jamie Walker give you any kind of clue as to what strategy he was trying to pull off?
Short pit. He was everybody. There was 2 strategies going on: 4-stop and the 5-stop. Usually is the case over here. A lot of guys don't like coming in late. Some people, they like to short pit and get out front. Short pitting and getting out front works if we have cautions. And I thought for sure we'd have a caution tonight, and then I thought for sure we were going to have one on lap 143. But I got to give kudos to Greg Mall for hanging on to that sucker. I watched it all transpire, and that was a hell of a job saving it and keeping the screen. And I think Jamie took 2 tires at the end of the race, and he lost it too by himself, but he ended up saving it and just parking it. So kudos to those guys for keeping it clean and green there at the end.
All right, Aaron, you come home second, and for the last time in the year of 2016, moving into 2017, thank your sponsors one more time before we let you go.
Thank my teammates over at Young Guns, Greg, Jamie, George, Seth, not a teammate, but a good friend that helps me out with adminning and stuff. And I thank my sponsor on the hood and my business partner, Gary Casal. It's our own business. We've been growing and actually had to go to work this morning for a little ice storm event that happened where I live. So just thank BNC and thank all the guys for coming out in the race. It was a good, fun race tonight.
All right, Aaron, congratulations on yet another second-place finish. And now we're going to talk to the man who finished behind you. It's number 24, Bobby Terrell. Evans caught up with him. Well, apparently I have the 24 Bobby Terrell. Evan throws him on me. Bobby, I'm running down here. Congratulations, you bring that 24 home in the podium position. Did you ever think you had a chance to catch the guys up front, or did you kind of just want to fight for that third spot?
I tried it in one part of the run there. I mean, I don't remember which pit stop it was, like second from the last or something. I really laid down some really hard laps right there at first, and I did take some of their lead off, but by that point, when we were getting close to the end of the race, I knew that, I was going to have to settle for third because I knew I wasn't up there. I didn't have the track position. I think if I could have got up there from the start with them, qualified better, that, it probably would have been a three-way battle and come down to pit stops. But like I said, I fell back and had to work my way back up through, and by the time I got up there, they were gone.
Now, we had the cameras basically on the top two mostly during the pit stops. What kind of strategy were you running? Were you the short pitting kind of guy, or did you kind of let the laps run out and get on older tires and then take the advantage of the rubbers after pit stop?
No, I knew I'd already figured up, I was going to go the long, wasn't going to pit as many as the other guys. If you could make it to, 34, 35 laps, you would cut one pit stop out completely. That was I did that from the get-go. If it went green, that's what I was planning on.
Yeah, unfortunately, we saw Jamie Walker. He was really hoping for a caution there throughout the entire race, and he never got one. I think he would have pulled off a pretty good strategy there, short pitting a few times, but the caution never came, and he was forced to kind of give up that strategy and ended up pulling it behind the wall. But that ends up putting you into third. Congratulations to you on yet another podium. Congratulations goes to your sponsors. You want to thank them before we let you go?
I'd just like to thank my teammates for all their help, helping me with pitting and stuff like that, and you guys up in the booth for everything y'all do and for doing this. I appreciate it.
That's Bobby Terrell. He comes home in third, and I'm going to send it up to Evan to close out the broadcast.
That's it tonight from the Texas Motor Speedway. Like I said, Texas is a place that can go green all the way. Doesn't necessarily always, and we saw that here tonight. Fun race. Tim Matthews, again, as I said, adds his name to the list of winners. Riley Thompson, Justin Michael, Greg Mall. Also one-time winners, Ashton Crowder is the only driver who's been victory lane twice so far this year. He's won every other race, so according to the stats, he should be the winner in 1 week's time when we come back racing from Talladega. But it was another exciting night. Again, I said that seeing these green flag races, they're not normally, Gabe, as exciting as far as all the side-by-side action as, races that have a lot of restarts and just by the nature of them tend to be more exciting. But tonight was fun, seeing these guys play the strategy card out. And, I bet you that if we go back at that scenario with about 30 laps to go and, just kind of mess around with when those guys pitted, we could have seen a couple of different results tonight. So I think any race, when it comes down late in the running order, and somebody can still pull out a win after, at that point, nearly 230 miles of racing is good stuff. And I think that we look forward to the 2017 part of the calendar when we come back.
Yeah, I want to say one thing before we close out here tonight, Evan. I think this race kind of lended itself more to a Formula One race. I know that's a very wide comparison, but F1 races, they go green, and you end up seeing the different teams try and pull different strategies on each other to short pit, get the undercut, stuff like that. We saw that tonight. It's very interesting. That's why, you and me kind of love that sort of racing, to see the mentality of it, to see drivers think of the better way to defeat their opponent and make up the time, either on pit road or on the racetrack, and we saw that here tonight.
I can almost guarantee that we're not going to see the same kind of a thing for round number 7 because we'll be headed off to Lincoln, Alabama, and to the Talladega Super Speedway. Nonetheless, though, we'll see you on that 2017 part of the calendar where we'll go from rounds 7 through 30 come the new year, but we're off for the next 2 weeks as we step aside and say goodnight tonight from the Texas Motor Speedway. Did want to say a thank you to everybody tuning in on behalf of the entire team at LSRTV, for the folks behind the scenes, as well as for the crew tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Gabe Wood, and our producer, Cisco Scarbus. I want to congratulate Tim Matthews as your winner tonight in the Chris Kyle 250. Want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, a Happy Holidays. We will see you in 3 weeks' time when United Sim Racing action returns in 2017 on January the 7th from the Talladega Super Speedway. Until then, we bid you a good night.